Today I'm sharing two super cute tops. They're not hard to sew, they're super easy to fit. So no fuss there. Pick your prettiest wovens. I've made one in a solid and I made one in a print. Different versions in the same pattern. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing. Today I have two woven tops to share. I've been really excited to sew these up. I've known about their existence for a little bit and they're hot off the sewing machine. These are called Shoreline and it's a brand new pattern from Emporium. As you can see, the sleeve is not set in, it's a dolman, which means it's super easy to fit. Top is meant to have a nice amount of ease, which means that you get a longer dolman sleeve. It's not those short ones, it's sort of above the elbow to begin with, so I think that's really cute. Down the front you have buttons and you can choose whether you want to do a V neckline or a rounded neckline. Those will have facings inside, very easy to sew, super neat finish. And then you have yokes both in the front and the back going across there, the upper bust. You can have a lot of fun top stitching that if you want to. And then for the pockets on the front, you can choose not to sew pockets, or you have a lot of pocket options, lots of shapes, rectangles, rectangle with a point, with angles, curved, all sorts of pockets. And you can choose to sew that pocket flap right into the seam, which makes it super easy. And then the patch pocket goes underneath, or you can just sew your front yoke to the bottom of the front, have it all done, and then choose where you want to put your pocket. It might end up on top of the seam, so you can do whatever you want there. The back is cut on the fold, of course. You also have a long seam across your shoulder blades ish. I mentioned the sleeve was longish. If you wanted it even longer, you can add a cuff. The cuff is designed to end up quite wide so that it can be folded up onto itself, and then you can sew on a little tab if you want to as an option. I think that's a really cute option. And then the hem is curved. Now if you think this is for summer, it's not, because if you want to make one for in between weather, you can add an extension to the dolman sleeve that will make it a long sleeve blouse instead, with a little casing and an elastic in there. So that makes the pattern basically for all seasons, whatever you want to do. I'm in summer right now, so my versions are the short sleeve. Because the Shoreline top is a brand new pattern, it's 15% off through Thursday. In Australia though, so probably Wednesday night around this area. There's also another pattern release happening at this moment called the Just Peachy Shorts for knit fabrics. Lots of different lengths and pocket options. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to make that one. I wish I had, because I wear shorts pretty much every day, but I know I'm going to make it in the near future. They're just so cute, and those are 15% off as well. I'll leave you my affiliate link in the pinned comment and in the description box. You don't pay any extra if you use my affiliate link. It just means I get a small commission back. That's just one of the ways I make an income creating helpful sewing content here on YouTube. So if you'd like to support my work by using my link, I'd be really grateful. As I mentioned before, the Shoreline is designed for woven fabrics, which is gold. When I look for fabric and I'm buying fabric, I'm drawn to the wovens. It's my first love, so I have a lot of options, and it was really hard to pick. Because this style is looser and has a bit more ease, I think drape is a desired feature here. Of course, this is all personal preference, because if you wanted to make this in a more structured fabric, it would work as well. It would just look a little different. And if you wanted a more structured look, you could go for chambray, light shirting, cotton lawn, that sort of thing. It's just that it's going to look different, but it's still going to work. It would be easier to work with the more structured wovens, as always. My preference here would be rayon blends. Rayon linen blends would be amazing. You could use crepe, you could use silk. Those would be my first options. I'd use tencel twill, rayon twill if I wanted a heavier version, you know, with a sleeve extension. Those fabrics have a heavier weight, but they still contain that amazing drape. I've chosen in this opportunity a solid and a print. They are exactly the same fabric composition, and it's because I suppose it's one of my favorites and I have so much of it. I have a solid with a Swiss dot detail and a print. Both are linen, 13%, and then 87% rayon. They are light to medium weight, so they're not as light as the regular plain weave of rayon, really lightweight fabrics. These are a little heavier, and that's why I love them so much, because they have that amazing drape, but they're not so light. They're amazing. Other than your main fabric, you need a few buttons. It depends if you're using buttons here on the flaps or the tabs, how many you need. So you might need up to 10 buttons. You need a little bit of interfacing as well, because you need to stabilize some areas like the tops of the patch pockets, the facings, if you're doing the little flap on the side. For the sizing, it's from 4 to 30 Australian, up to a 58 3/4 inch hip. And as I mentioned before, this is looser. In the pattern there's two types of feet suggested. The easy feet would be in essence your real feet, which is based on your high bust measurement. This will give you a nice amount of ease. If you wanted oversized feet, just make one size larger. And then it doesn't really mention going down a size, but I think you could go down a size from your real feet. I've just looked at the pattern pieces, measured everything, and I think I would have been okay with going one size down and I would still be okay. So one size, either less or more, but not more than that, I think you'll be okay and you'll still keep the intended look for the style.
At this point in time, my real feet is a size 16 Australian, so that's what I've chosen for mine.
For the hem length, there's sort of height lengths. There's a short, regular and tall length on the pattern pieces. I chose the short one, not because I'm short, I'm 5'8", I just wanted a shorter top. And it's usually what I prefer when I have something that's a little bit more voluminous, because then I can pair it with something more slim fitting on the bottom. And I feel I'm a little bit more balanced in the look. So that's just my preference. I wouldn't want to make a really long top, but I know a lot of people like making really long tops. So when you sew, you can do whatever you want, and that's what's the best about sewing. Fitting adjustments, personal fit, nothing. I just measured myself, chose my size 16 and went for it. Nothing. I didn't do any changes. I think that's why it's called easy fit, because it's just easy fit. It's just gonna fit. I have filmed some sewing for you. I'm focusing a little bit on the pockets, main construction, putting it all together. I am focusing a little bit more on the facings because I think that is the most important area. They're very, very easy to sew. And I think some of the order of construction might be a little bit different to what you're used to. And it's because of the shape of the dolman sleeve and the shape of the curved hem. So let's see. Here are the pieces for one of my Shoreline tops. This is the back yoke, and that is the back. It's cut on the fold. You can see that once you sew them together, you get a dolman type sleeve shape right there. For the front, there's also two pieces, the yoke and the bottom part. When sewn together, they will form the front. This is the V neckline option. There's a separate pattern piece, so the front yoke has a rounded neckline. And then this is the facing that corresponds to the V neckline. There's also a different pattern piece for the rounded one and the little one for the back. That facing is on the fold like everything else on the back. For the pockets, there's different shapes you can use. I've just chosen the rectangle. That is the patch pocket, and that is going to be the flap. The flap, half of it needs to be interfaced lengthwise so you can see the black area and the top of the patch pocket as well. There's one thing that I'm not using, and it's a cuff. It's an option. You can sew a cuff onto the end of the sleeve that folds over with a little tab. I don't have enough fabric for that. And before starting, I'm going to stay stitch the neckline so it doesn't deform and the facings can fit later. So I'm going to do from the shoulder into the center, flip it, and then from the shoulder into the center to do it directionally. Seam allowance later is going to be 3/8, so I'm doing it a little smaller than that, just with a straight stitch. And then it's the same for the front pieces. This is the V neckline shape. This can easily get longer because there's quite a lot of bias in this shape. These are the pocket flaps. I am going to use this option with a rectangle shape. So it's just a rectangle folded, right sides together. Half is interfaced, half isn't. And so we're just going to sew the short ends. This top edge is going to be left raw. You don't need to finish that. All the seams for this pattern are going to be 3/8 of an inch. This is the rectangle patch pocket. The top part was interfaced. There are little marks for you to be able to do that. I have already serged all the edges so they're nice and neat. And now the top area, you just fold it onto itself, right sides together here, and sew these little short ends. Then we can flip it and get a really clean edge. This is my favorite way to finish patch pockets actually. So I'm glad the instructions show it exactly like this. I'm going to go ahead and flip these to the other side, tidy them up, iron them, top stitch them, all of that so that they're ready to be sewn onto the blouse. The flap gets dealt with first because I'm going to be sewing it into the seam of the yoke. This one gets sewn on later. This gets flipped over like that. Then that immediately folds this edge in and all the edges get folded in by 3/8. I'll be doing some top stitching throughout the blouse, and I'll be doing it the same everywhere. So you can see here that I'm doing one row at 1/4 inch with my 1/4 inch press foot. After going around the shape and pivoting carefully, I swap over to my blind hem press foot with the needle to the left to do the edge stitching. And the results are always so neat and so professional. These are the front pieces here, the yoke and the bottom section. I'm going to be sewing the pockets into the seam for this one. That's an option that you can do. I already have my flaps here. You just need to make sure that you have the interface side looking up at you. And there are marks on the pattern to place it right there on the bottom section. And then we can baste that along right there and forget that the flap is there. Super easy, just as easy as that. And then we take the yoke piece, match up the reference points, and then sew along, and we're going to have a completed front piece. Here is one of the front pieces. This is the center front over here because it's all straight. And we go along, and this area where I have my pins in another direction is where the flap is. So if I lift my yoke, you're going to see it's going to come out right there in that seam. Super easy. After we sew the seam, we can lift that out of the way and sew the patch pocket there. Then we go along, you're going to have single notches that match the ones on the back, so everything's good. Slightly curved as it goes off to the side where the dolman sleeve is. And over here, this is important, you're supposed to have that little shape protruding there, because we're sewing at 3/8, and so at 3/8 both edges are going to be together right there. This seam afterwards is going to be pressed up towards the yoke, so you see that shape follows the shape of the dolman sleeve. It's been true to that shape. Now here where the flap is, right at the beginning of the flap, we're going to have 6 layers of fabric, and then towards the rest of the flap we're going to have 4 layers. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of the stitch length over here. Once I'm past my pocket flap, I'm going to bring my stitch length back to how it used to be. I'll repeat the same with the other front piece and then do the back. The back is easier because it's just one piece, one long seam. The back yoke and the bottom back piece were both cut on the fold, so they're pretty wide. So this seam is going to be pretty long, it's curved. There's a few little double notches to match along the way, so it's all good. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the front and just sew these together at 3/8. After that, I'll serge the edges, press the seam up and top stitch. Now I'm going to serge the edges. The seam allowance is going to go up towards the yoke, and then we're going to top stitch. I'm going to do it the same as you saw me do it with the flap over here to end up with 2 rows. Really neat. Top stitching is going to be around here. I've just pinned my patch pocket in. You can see when I lift the flap, this is about 5/8 of an inch from the seam going down. And I'm going to hand baste it now and then top stitch it in place. I made sure to align the center front along the edges of my cutting mat. I love having a cutting mat on my sewing table because it helps me with things like that. I was able to align that right there on the line, super neat, and then measure the edge of the pocket there, there to make sure it's really straight and really neat. The back is all completed with the top stitching, all of that. The front is also completed. Place the front pieces on top, right sides together, and now we sew the shoulder seams, serge and top stitch the seam allowance towards the back. Here is the top. I've got it right sides up. Shoulder seams have been sewn, and then what I've done off camera is also assemble the facings. The facings have a seam right there that's going to match the shoulder seams. This is interfaced. I have already serged the edges right there of the facing, as you can see. So I'm just going to align the facing right sides together here, pin it all together and sew it. That way, V neckline right there and around, going back down. Now at the beginning, I'm sewing the facing down horizontally. Then I can have a really clean finished edge at the bottom and I can just flip that. I'm sewing the facing on at 3/8 seam allowance, going up the straight edge, and when we get to the V section, I've drawn a little yellow dot where I'm going to stop, pivot, and change direction for the V shape of this facing. Whenever I have a little pivot area, I prefer to draw a dot because it just helps me be more accurate rather than just eyeballing that. This is the V shape. It's not too curved. I'm going to do just a few snips around this top area where it starts getting a little bit curved, and then around the back I'm going to snip. This is 3/8 seam allowance. I think that's okay to leave inside a facing. If the pattern used a larger seam allowance, I would be trimming it down, but I think 3/8 is fine. Extend this, have the seam allowance be tucked in under the facing, and I'm going to be sewing right there on the edge so that everything is understitched. In this little point here, I won't be able to go all the way to the point, but I'll stop a little before and then continue there. Focused at the bottom, I couldn't get all the way down with the understitching, but it's right there, and this is the horizontal seam and then going up, and then we just fold this onto itself and flip it and you get a really nice little corner right there. This is my favorite way to finish the bottoms when there's a facing, because this edge is finished, that edge is finished, there's no raw areas, and then the hem comes from behind. Now that I'm done with this, I'm just going to tidy up this facing, and then I'm going to do the hem. In the pattern, it suggests folding in twice. I'm just going to fold it up once. I'm going to use a 3/8 hem allowance just because it's curved. And when we get to the sides, it's very curved. So we're going to be sewing the hems in stages. And then after the hem is done, then we're going to sew the side seams. I'm not going to be adding a cuff to the end of this dolman sleeve. So I've already serged the edge, and I'm going to be ready also to hem it. Have that ready and then sew the side seams. It's just going to be easier to deal with this little curve right here under the arm. So that's all that's left. I'm going to sew the hem on both places, the sleeves and the bottom, and then sew the side seams, buttonholes and buttons, and that's it. After finishing the hems and doing the side seams, I'm finally top stitching down the facings. I did hand base them in place while at the ironing board, while everything was flat and everything's really neat. I'm doing it from the wrong side and just using the serged edge as a guide to go all the way around. Here is my purple version. Look, these colors like burgundy and purple, they never show on camera the real color that I'm seeing right here, because I'm seeing this gorgeous purple and there on screen it looks like a dark fuchsia, but it's a purple. It's a little bit crumpled because I've just filmed myself wearing them. So yeah, apologize about that, but you can see the Swiss dot detail there, and the texture of the fabric is amazing. With this one, I went all in with the top stitching. Because it's a solid, you can really see it. So I've top stitched all the seams. There's my pockets. The flap has a button, but it's just decorative. I didn't sew a buttonhole right there. And then the rectangle. There's lots of shapes you can choose. This is a V neckline and the hem is curved. But because the hem is quite curved on the side, it was actually easier to sew the hems first and then the side seam. In other types where it's just different shapes, I would actually sew the side seams first, then the hems, but I think in this case it was easier to do it as per the instructions, so I'm okay with that. And the sleeve is just hemmed normally. Now when I plan to make two tops, I don't just cut them out both at the same time with the same size and everything, because what happens if I don't like the fit, or if I want to change something? So for this one, I knew from the get-go I wasn't going to be doing the cuff. I didn't have enough fabric for it, but I wanted to see how long the sleeve, you know, looked on the body, and I was quite happy because it's quite long. So that meant that for the next version I didn't feel that I needed to add the cuff to add more length to the sleeve. I wanted it to be where it was. I didn't want it to be longer. So yeah, if you're gonna make two, I suggest you make one, try it on, see if you're happy, and then cut the next one, because it just helps you make decisions. Same as the length, I wanted to see if I was 100% happy. I was. So basically the second time I cut it the same. Just mentioning what goes in my sewing brain. Let me show you how it looks like inside. I'm so happy I have matching serger thread for every color under the sun. I mean, maybe not for like orange and yellow, but pretty much every color. So I'm very happy everything is neat inside. Facing is top stitched also, and it looks just as neat on the inside as well. Here on the side seams, I've just tacked the seam allowance towards the back so it stays in place, same as here underneath the sleeve. This is my first Shoreline top from Pattern Emporium. This is a size 16. This is my actual size, which would make it the easy fit option. I've got the shortest length available here. I love this purple linen rayon blend. I've got the regular dolman sleeve just hemmed up without the cuff, and I've got the V neckline option with some patch pockets in the front. This is a summery look with a white denim skirt, white sandals. Up closer you'll see that there's Swiss dot details in the texture, love that. You can make one for winter as well and use the long sleeve option that you sew onto the dolman sleeve as part of the pattern. This is my preferred length at the mid hip, slightly shorter on the side where the curved hem is. It's a really comfortable amount of ease. I think this ease is enough. I wouldn't make it oversized or one size larger. I think I would make it one size smaller even. I think you could play with that. This is my actual size and that's how the ease looks like. Super comfy, easy to wear. Here is the V neckline option. It's finished really neatly with a facing. Here is my flap. There is the yoke seam above the bust. I have a button for decoration. If you wanted to do an actual buttonhole, I think it'd be easier to do it when you have the flap on its own before sewing it into the seam. And there I have my patch pocket. There's different shapes and options. I've done quite a bit of top stitching here because it's a solid. I think you can see it. You can see that the length of the dolman sleeve is quite long, just as it is. If I added the optional cuff, then it would be below the elbow. I love the depth of this V. It's not too low. I'm not showing anything, but it's not too high. And it's softer on the outer edges. I love it. I love the shape and the finish with the facing is so easy. I'm super happy with this purple top. It's one of my favorite colors and I've paired it with white here, but I could do so much more. You'll see it next, just open like a little layer. Project was easy to sew. The fit, what can I say? No fuss, no stress, very enjoyable. Here is another fun look with my Shoreline top. The way my eyes see it, the top is exactly the same color as the linen pants, the trousers, so I think it's really cool. I always like wearing a top like this open as a little light layer. I've just got a black cami underneath, some really cute heels. I love this look. Two colors keeps it simple, and this color combination really suits me and makes me feel really good. The trousers aren't too voluminous, they're your classic trousers, they're not wide legs, so I think they pair really well with a layer that has a little bit more volume on top. Here is my second one. This is a fabric I love so much. I bought quite a bit of yardage of it and I think I have enough for a dress. I would not get lost in this one. If you wanted to find me, you would. Quite bold. And I didn't do the patch pockets here because you wouldn't really see them. The print is so busy. What I did here was cut these stripes going vertical. They're not regular stripes, they're sort of more creative stripes. You can see stripes here as well. So these are vertical, and on the yokes I cut the pieces going horizontal like this. If you want to ask me, what about cutting on the cross grain and such? I've washed the fabric twice. It is a pretty loose fit anyway. If it shrinks a tiny little bit more in the wash, I'm not going to be concerned. I did this for aesthetic purposes because I wanted to look really cool. So I'm okay with cutting on the cross grain for some projects, especially the ones that have more ease, that are not too fitted. So same as on the back, you can see the stripes going like that and then going down like this here. Very subtle, but I think it highlights the seams a little bit more like that, even though it's a print. This one has the round neckline option. The facing inside was sewn in the exact same way and everything is exactly the same. All very neat inside. I've done it with the white serger thread here and I'm very happy with how this one turned out. Love it. I know the print is not for everyone, but it's for me. This is my second Shoreline top from Pattern Emporium, same size 16 as the other version, same length, same type of sleeve option. This time it's just a print. I really wanted to use this print. It's the same type of fabric, rayon linen blend, and there were some vertical components in the print, like a type of stripe feature. I've got the yoke pieces with the stripes going horizontal and the bottom pieces I have the stripes going vertical. It's very subtle. I've got it paired here with my comfy sporty lounge skirt from Pattern Emporium. Pull up, stretch suede in a matching color. I love how this looks. Got shoes in the same color as the skirt. I think this is a really nice dressed up look while also feeling like I'm wearing pajamas. I feel so comfortable. I've got the shortest length on the pattern, just personal preference. It's all otherwise the same, but there's something different. This neckline is rounded, it's higher than the other one, it's got a different facing, the yoke on the front is a different piece, otherwise it's finished inside the same way with the facings. Here you can see the horizontal stripes I'm referring to. I think the sleeve is long enough without needing that cuff. If I thought it was short or too short, I would have added the cuff. I did have enough fabric to do that, but I thought this length was the longest I would want it to be, so that's why I didn't add the cuff. That's an option. Now the other thing I didn't do was add a pocket. You know, the print is super busy, it would be really hard for you to see the pocket anyway, so I decided to leave the pocket out. So all I have is the seam right here of the yoke. I did top stitch this one just on the edge. I love that there's two options for the neckline. I really like them both. I love a good V neckline or a rounded neckline. It's sort of the same for me, but I know some people have really strong preferences for that. I love that I can use a shoreline top, you know, in a dressed up type of look. I could go to church like this and be absolutely fine. I know this print is very, very bold and out there. The modified animal print is just, yeah, I would not get lost if you're trying to find me in this one. Totally my style. It's not everyone's style, but what's great about sewing is that you get to choose your fabric. This makes me really happy. Here is another fun look with my bold shoreline top. This time I brought out my getaway shorts, also from Pattern Emporium. They're in the exact same color as the skirt I was wearing previously, and I think it's a perfect match to the print here. I've got a matching cami and just have my top open, like a light layering piece. And I've got some fun sneakers. I love these sneakers. From far away they look white, but they do have metallic gold and silver details in there. Love it. This is a really cool look I would enjoy the whole day and be mega comfortable. Because this rayon is nice and soft and a little more floppy, when I just button this up, this sort of folds over by itself and creates a type of little lapel, which I think is really cute. I mean, if I button it up, I get the full rounded neckline, but I think this looks cute if I wear it just open and just maybe button up one or just have it completely open. I think for a design like this, the fact that there's a short, regular and tall version on the pattern piece is more personal preference than actual height, because I think everyone wants their top to be a different length. I tend to want mine shorter when they're wider tops like this, so I just use a short cut line. It doesn't mean I'm short, I'm 5'8", but this is my preferred length and I'm really happy with the choice. I didn't make one with a long sleeve extension. I know I would in the future. I really love the fit and how easy this is to wear. It was really easy to sew, believe it or not. It wasn't hard. There's nothing hard here. And I know some people have made jackets out of this pattern as well using the long sleeve piece. So I think you can have a lot of options. For now, I'm really going to enjoy these. The solid, the print, they're so wearable, they're so pretty. They just feel amazing on. It just feels like you're wearing nothing. You can live your life, you know, if you style it a certain way, you can still look dressed up. So I'm very happy. I take my hat off to Kate, the designer, because she always makes super wearable designs that are so easy to fit and they're just no fuss to sew. I just really enjoy the project. I've never been stressed making a Pattern Emporium make. It's just always such a good experience, and then the fit is just so easy. So I'm always really excited when there's a new pattern. Don't forget to check out the shoreline top and the Just Peachy short, which is another pattern release happening right now. I'll leave you all the links in the pinned comment and in the description box. That's all from me. I'll see you again very soon with more sewing. Bye!